Hello my friends, this is part 9 in a series of videos on the astrology of bipolar disorder. When I finished the 7th video, I said, we're done, 7 videos. Then I had an addendum, part 8, believe it or not, another addendum, part 9. I really think this is the final one. But here's what happened. Another idea occurred to me on these hypothesis tests, the final phase of the research in this multi-phase research that was done on the astrology of bipolar disorder. And here's what happened. Cleaning up the data. What I've described in the past few videos in this series is that people were classified in the online Astro Databank, that's this data at astrodatabank.com, they were classified as bipolar disorder because their mother or their father had bipolar disorder, or they were psychologists studying bipolar disorder. They did not have bipolar disorder. So I went back and carefully read all the biographies to make sure, and I found people, 7 people in the database of 108 who actually didn't have bipolar disorder. That reduced it to 101. Now, a few days ago, I think it was 2 days ago or 3 days ago, something else occurred to me. That what I did is I made sure everybody in the database has bipolar disorder. There's another flip side to this. Did I miss anybody in the online Astro Databank who has bipolar disorder? Then if somebody replicates my research and they'll say, oh look, his data is not right. Why did he not include this person, that person? If I missed a few people, it's probably not going to affect the results dramatically, but maybe it would. Who knows? What if they all score extremely low or extremely high or whatever? And it's just a little bit sloppy. So I went through every name in the online Astro Databank. This took like solid days. I mean, it's like incredibly tedious. Because I'm doing this research by myself is another reason why I want to be very careful. We don't have a team of people. We don't have somebody double checking. I just don't have those kind of resources. This is important. It's a controversial statement to say the least, that astrology, actually works. There are measurable effects. So I went through, read them all to see if I missed anybody. And it's very easy to do. Sometimes I could enter data and forget to click on this little pull-down menu thing to assign them to the category. Then they don't end up getting research. I went through and I found 9 additional cases of bipolar disorder. So what we have are the 108 before I removed the ones that do not have bipolar disorder, brought us down to 101, found 9 more, and now we have 110. So this is like the super cleaned up database of people with bipolar disorder that we did not look at when we were building the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the names of the 110 people in case anybody wants to replicate the research, just to document this. I'll show you the results for the 3 hypothesis tests. Why are there 3? Because I went through 2 levels of cleaning up after I thought I was done. I thought I was done with 108, decided to go through, remove the ones who don't have bipolar disorder, ended up with 101, went through again, added additional people who have bipolar disorder that got left out, and here's the final database, 110. That's our best, cleanest, best database. So let's see who these people are, look at the results, and then I want to talk about this process of removing people that don't have bipolar disorder, because it's not black and white. It can get a little bit tricky, and I want to document everything. So here's the 110 people. What we're seeing here are the 101 people listed alphabetically, and then at the end, here in the lower right corner, the 9 new people that I just added with their birth time accuracy. So that's just the list. If anybody wants to research it, I recommend using this list of all 110. So just to document who these people are. Now, the client ones with client 8, those are Giselle's clients. We did not get permission to share their birth information, so that you wouldn't have. You would have the 110 minus 8, the 102, and you will get similar results. I have checked that. And here are the results. So whether we have the 108 before I remove the ones who actually don't have bipolar disorder and go down to 101, or whether we include the ones that I overlooked. So this is the best results on the right the sample size of 110, the results are extremely similar. Like if you look at all of the people in the database, regardless of how accurate the birth times are, the ratio, which is a measurement of effect size, almost identical. The results for the t-test give the same statistical significance. Really no difference. If we remove the ones where we're not even sure of their birth times at all, and we have what we call an accuracy level of C, again, extremely similar results. The n equals 110, a little bit better. We have results of, for the effect size, 0.09, 0.096, 0.106. The larger this ratio, which is a measurement of effect size, the better. The B minimum also very, very, very tiny bit better on the effect size. A accuracy got worse. It was 0.085, 0.087, went all the way down to 0.072, and the statistical significance went from 0.10 to 0.15. The bigger that number, the worse the results. So that was not quite as good. And the AA went down very slightly, but these numbers are so high, and we're still at 0.01 statistical significance. So overall, extremely similar results. This is just to be very, very careful in the process. And there's a technical note here about how the ratio is calculated. I talk about that in the previous videos where we're using the same control group mean. It's just a very subtle technical issue that I talk about in the previous videos, that I think this is the best control group value that we can use. And by the way, a note here, this same table appears in previous videos without the n equals 110, and these two tables of 108 and 101, they're, instead of being side by side, one's above the other. And there was a typo. One of you viewers found it, thank you very much. I went to the wrong list of numbers, and the I got another typo here. It says the letter M as in Mary. This should be N. For N equals 108, this was in the previous video, in part 8. These values for B minimum, A minimum, and AA only, the N was wrong. So 85, 74, 39, that's correct. If anybody carefully analyzes, as one person was doing watching the video, there was a little typo there. Fortunately, it was a little scary finding a typo. The ratio values and the p-values, they are correct, because I have the original files where I ran these t-tests, saved everything, and they make it clearer. The n is 85 for B minimum, and somehow I just stuck the wrong number in there. What if I put the wrong number on one of these vitally important things? That would be embarrassing and confusing, because then you'd have to watch this video to correct everything. It's, we're humans. You can make mistakes. I check and I double check and I triple check. But anyway, just a very, very minor point. Doesn't really affect anything, but just to let you know, if you go back to part 8 of this 9-part series, you'll see the same information, and the 85, 74, and 39 have different numbers, which is incorrect. Doesn't affect any of our conclusions. So conclusions, all three hypothesis tests produced extremely similar results. To 2 decimal points, we have the effect size is extremely similar, ranging from 0.07 to 0.20, which is very good. In the training, we had a 0.10. So the effect size should be worse when you test your model, and we're actually only slightly worse to much better. So that's still rather extraordinary that we're getting such good results. And with the larger sample sizes here of over 100 people in our sample, we're able to get marginally statistically significant, right around 0.05, depending on which of these results. But if you look at all the data, it's right in there. So amazingly good for a small sample size. So that's the conclusion. The hypothesis is confirmed. Now, we need to do a lot more research. You have a statistical significance around 5%, even 10% for some of these. There's a 1 in 20, 1 in 10 possibility. Some of these are not even there, even though, as I explained before, what you really need to look at is effect size because we have a much smaller sample. Anyway, you can listen to the other videos. The results are very, very, very positive, suggesting that our hypothesis is confirmed and we need more research to see if it's really confirmed. All right, last thing I want to talk about. Who has bipolar disorder and who does not? Who should we include? I mean, ultimately what you would like is you would like a medical diagnosis of bipolar disorder. If I required a medical diagnosis of bipolar disorder, I'm not sure how many I have, but probably 10 or 15 instead of 100. You can't do any kind of statistical tests worth anything. You can't have confidence. There's too much random variability. So I need to include people who are not medically diagnosed, by a therapist as having bipolar disorder, in order to do this study at all. So where do I cut it off? What's the cutoff point? So let me share a little bit about that. One rule I used is that there were a few people who were misdiagnosed as having bipolar disorder. In other words, somebody said, a professional said, or semi-professional, somebody said, you have bipolar disorder, that was taken as pretty much a diagnosis. And then on further investigation, said, oh, no, that was a mistake. You have something else. One of those people was Connie Francis. And I had brought up her chart specifically before I knew about the misdiagnosis. When I read the biographies more carefully, and I found this biography saying she was misdiagnosed. And that was like, wow, because she was the worst person in the database in terms of confirming the model. She scored, I think it was 1, when the average score was 25, somewhere in that range. So her astrological analysis shows that she does not have bipolar. She's not prone to bipolar disorder, but we thought she did. So using my rules, now that we know she was misdiagnosed, I should remove her. If I remove her from the database, all of these values, all of them, for the 110 and the 101 where I cleaned it up, this 101 could have been brought down to 100 because I could have also removed Connie Francis. Using my rules, I should remove her. And this should have 109, and all of these values under n equals 101 and n equals 110 are going to be better, noticeably better, because when you remove your worst case that's extremely off, they're like an outlier, all your results look better. So why didn't I remove it? I'm supposed to. The only reason I didn't remove it is that it could look suspicious, because here we have results with 108, and now he removes the worst case in the database, the outlier who does not fit his model. It just cannot look good, even though my rules say to remove it. So I left her in there because I want to be conservative about this, and it's easy to fool yourself. It's easy to trick yourself. So I'm just being ultra careful. So I'm actually making the results worse than I should. Another case, and this gives like a good sense of the gray area. Todd Bridges is in the database. He's a well-known person. He's an actor. Should he be considered to have bipolar disorder or not? I'll tell you a little bit of the story, and you could decide what your rules would be. Here's the story. Number 1, he's in Astro Databank as having bipolar disorder. So at first, naively, I said, okay, he's in the database as having bipolar disorder. He has it. But then there wasn't really any mention in the online Astro Databank or Wikipedia. So I started Googling Todd Bridges bipolar disorder. I can find no mention of bipolar disorder for Todd Bridges. The guy has had a very rough life. He's had, drug abuse problems, all kinds of problems. But having mental and emotional problems does not equal bipolar disorder. His symptoms appear to be different. I watched an interview of him called Todd Bridges, best known for Willis of Different Strokes, tells his life story, full interview. You'll find that on YouTube. I watched this whole thing. I'm not seeing, he's talking about all these horrible things that he went through at certain parts. Doesn't sound like bipolar disorder to me. I'm not an expert therapist in this, but pretty obvious. And I finally found a mention of bipolar disorder for Todd Bridges. This takes time. Just this one guy is hunting around all over the place. I found it happened to be another YouTube video called Dr. Karlfeldt interviews Betty Bridges, mother of Todd Bridges, True.Health show. In this interview of his mom, Betty Bridges, she says how difficult times were sometimes with her son, Todd. The interview was asking about this, and she said, there was a time when I didn't know where he was. And she says, I'm a religious person. I just sat down. She says, I sat down cross-legged, like lotus posture, they would call it, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed. And something told her to turn on the TV. And she's thinking, turn on the TV? What? Okay, I'll turn on the TV. She sees a show about bipolar disorder. And in this show, it gives hints about how to find people, etc. It was like, wow. It felt like an answer to a prayer. The next night, she's praying. Same thing happens. Third night, same thing happens. In fact, she gets this impulse. Okay, this TV show isn't telling me anything. I think I'm supposed to turn the station. 3 nights in a row, these documentaries on bipolar disorder, and the information provided helps her. They tell her you can go to hospitals and do this and do that. She finds her son. She's able to take him to the hospital. He gets excellent treatment. The people there are wonderful. It was the answer to a prayer. Now, personally, I suspect it was an answer to a prayer. But the fact that the TV show was about bipolar disorder, and there's no evidence he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, that TV show enabled her to find her son, Todd, and get help for him. It could have been a show about anything, but it was about mental and emotional illness. So again, we're not seeing any evidence that he has bipolar disorder. So I should remove him, according to my rules. However, I have the same problem I have with Connie Francis. Bridges also scored low on bipolar disorder. I think he got a score of 12 or something, and the average is 25. If I remove Todd Bridges and Connie Francis, all of my results look better, but they can look suspicious if anybody reruns all of this stuff. I mean, if you get the book, The Astrology of Bipolar Disorder Scientific Breakthrough, it has the complete astro signature there. You can put that in the software. You can rerun everything and recollect the data. And they could look suspicious that I remove these two. It can look suspicious, but my rules say I should. Therefore, I have in bold here at the end, Bridges scored very low, and like Connie Francis, brings down the scores for people with BD, but I left him in the study anyway. The actual results are even better than reported. So these results are conservative values. Conservative meaning took extra precautions to make sure they're not inflated. If anything, they're deflated. They're possibly even better than what I had. So I'm going through all these details because one of the things in research is people build on research. I'm documenting as clearly as possible. Normally, this is not done through a video or a book. It's done in an academic paper that's published in a journal. And sometimes there are references and links to get additional, like the data and stuff. We don't have journals for publishing this kind of information. I'm just putting it out in a book and in videos. But I want to document as clearly some of the issues that came up and some of the things that I did, just being extra careful to not look suspicious or exaggerate the findings. There are so many ways to fool yourself, so many ways unintentional errors can creep in. So I keep going back over and over and over again. I think this is really the final video. 9 part series on the the astrology of bipolar disorder. And if you really want to dive deep, I do recommend getting the book as well. But unless you're going extreme, I think these videos give you, a very thorough understanding of what the research is all about. Thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, if you could just subscribe, wow, it helps tremendously. The more subscribers we have, the more YouTube promotes the videos, and it just helps build interest and involvement and engagement, and that helps me pay the bills and continue to be able to do this. There's also a membership, and here's information about the membership. It's right there on your YouTube, and some other ways to become members. There's 2 levels of membership, gold and platinum, and that gives you the opportunity to meet with me online regularly to discuss anything you want to discuss. But all the videos are free, all the information's there, and there are some other advantages, particularly to the platinum membership, some search tools and other things to help you. Okay, my friends, that's it. I think I'm really done. 9 videos. This whole series is complete. And also at the beginning of the very first one, I said something about like there's so much more in the book. I ended up doing more than I thought I would. I got into the forecasting techniques we use to validate the model and some additional things. So this is really pretty comprehensive. So I hope you find it helpful. There's still a lot more in the book that I didn't cover, but there's stuff I covered here that's not in the book, like these updated hypothesis tests, for example. Okay, thank you very much. God bless. Namaste.